So in this video, I'm going to go over some of the dumbest arguments that I hear many Bigfoot believers make in regards to the existence of Bigfoot, why there's no way for this to be fake, and so on. So before I begin, I want to start by saying that I'm not necessarily a disbeliever in Bigfoot because I'm not 100% certain of anything in this world. So I'm not going to go out there and say that I'm 100% certain that Bigfoot doesn't exist. I just think that out of all of the arguments put forward by Bigfoot people, uh, when I say Bigfoot people, I'm just talking about the people who argue for the existence of Bigfoot. Um, None of their arguments are strong enough for me to suspect that there could be some undiscovered primate out there roaming the woods of North America. So, how certain am I of it being not real and just a figment of modern mythology? I would say I would put my overall certainty at somewhere around 98 to 99%. That's as high as I can go. Beyond that is just me being intellectually dishonest because, like I said, I am not somebody who's certain of anything in this world. So, anyway, the first of the dumbest arguments that I hear that get regurgitated, these are in no particular order, by the way. So, the first one is that all of the footprint casts that have been found can't be fake. So I think the most basic way for me to debunk this is by saying that if this capturing Bigfoot documentary that's coming out lives up to the hype, and that Dr. Jeff Meldrum actually went back on his position and basically changed his position and now thinks that the Patterson-Gimlin film has been a hoax, well, then that proves that a couple of cowboys in the 1960s made footprints that fooled a professional anthropologist. So to say that humans can't fake these footprints is wrong. That's false because they obviously can. If the Patterson-Gimlin film gets proven beyond a reasonable doubt now that to have been a hoax, that basically proves that humans have the ability, even back in the 1960s, to create convincing footprint casts of these so-called creatures. So, like I said, Jeff Meldrum for many years was a big proponent of the Patterson-Gimlin film. He analyzed the footprint casts that were found at the scene, and he would display them and talk about the features on them all the time and argue that these footprint casts are real because of the mid-tarsal break and yada yada yada. All of the features of these footprint casts. Now, the second dumbest argument, again, in no particular order, is that the U.S. government knows that the Bigfoot creatures are real and they're covering it up to protect the logging industry. Now, this is dumb for many reasons, but the argument goes something like this: the government wants to basically protect the logging industry because if Bigfoot gets proven to be real, that means that they have to protect the habitat. Endangered species laws will basically kick in and force the government's hand, and they would have to protect the habitat of the Bigfoot. But the problem with this argument is that, well, for one, the government has activated this endangered species law to protect anything from sensitive wetlands to owls to all kinds of stuff. And to think that they would care about the logging industry when it comes to a creature that's just, how many of these creatures would be alleged to exist? Maybe a couple thousand or something if these things get proven to be real. Not nearly enough to really have an impact on the logging industry. The logging industry is only about a $300 billion a year industry in the US. And when you compare that to something like healthcare, which is like $4.4 trillion a year, it's it's pennies. And then also when they say the government is covering this up, none of these people can really name any names or like give any specifics on how this cover up could have been done by this many people. You're talking park rangers, you're talking low level government officials, police, you're talking all the way up to the president, basically. So a cover up of this scale would need to have a lot of people to be involved just to cover up some unknown ape wandering around the forest, which at any moment could accidentally reveal itself to the public anyway. Why would the government be concerned with covering up a Bigfoot like this, especially when you consider how much tourism revenue would come from a discovery like this? This would be major headline news around the world if Bigfoot gets proven to be a real creature wandering around the forests in the US. I mean, can you imagine what kind of tourism boom that would be? The scientific community would just flock to wherever the discovery was made, and assumedly this might be the closest genetic relative to humans, right? I mean, assumedly so. So I don't think that the government would have any reason to want to cover this up if it were out there. Um, so anyway, as I understand, there's only about 50,000 people, period, within the U.S. that work directly in the logging industry. I mean, there's a lot of jobs downstream from the logging industry, like paper mills and that sort of thing. But logging itself, I believe, only has about 50,000 people working in it directly. So the argument that the US government is just engaging in a massive cover up of Sasquatch because they care about the logging industry, I think is absolutely ridiculous. So, anyway, the third dumb argument that I hear that gets thrown around constantly by Bigfoot believers is that almost every culture on Earth, have stories of these so called wild men, big hairy men, that sort of thing. Meaning that most cultures around the world have some kind of a story or legend of a giant hairy man like thing. And it sounds smart on the surface, and that's why these people regurgitate it so much, because they think it makes them sound smart. But the problem with this argument is that it doesn't support that this is a real thing, because if every culture in the world somehow knows about this, at least one of them would be able to show it, prove it. One of them must have captured one, killed one, found a dead body by now. If this thing was truly a global phenomenon, somebody would be able to prove it by now. However, it's like I said before, the subject of Bigfoot, I believe, is a question that can be solved through anthropology, but not physical anthropology. Bigfoot is more of a cultural anthropology question, not a physical anthropology one. I think the fact that so many cultures around the world have a story of a Bigfoot-like creature is indicative of something within the human psyche. It's not indicative that something big and hairy is wandering around in the forests of North America or wherever else in the world these things exist. You know, Australia, Asia, maybe even in Africa, I think too. So I think that it's more indicative that there's something embedded in the human psyche that wants us to believe that something big, hairy, and man-like is out there. So I think that the real answer to the question of Bigfoot and other similar legends like this lay deeply embedded in the human psyche. It's not. I don't believe that it's just something that's wandering out there in the woods. So anyway, um, for my last for the last dumb argument, you might be wondering why I'm wearing these obnoxious sunglasses, and there's a reason why I'm wearing them, and it's because ad hominem attacks. Now, it is actually really bright out here, but I chose my most obnoxious sunglasses because I want to show if this video takes off in the algorithm and you've made it this far into the video, I want to point this out to you that there are going to be people who obviously didn't watch this video commenting in the comment section, making fun of my sunglasses, making fun of the fact that I'm a skinny white man wearing a NWA tank top, basically attacking anything but whatever argument is that I'm making. So there are going to be people like this. This is what's called ad hominem attack, where instead of addressing whatever it is that the person is arguing, what they'll do is they'll just attack the person making the argument, discredit them, that sort of thing. You know, if I'm not 6'4" and jacked out of my mind, I can't have an opinion on Bigfoot. You know, if I live in a city, I can't have an opinion on Bigfoot. If I'm not tan, I can't have an opinion on Bigfoot. Whatever dumb arguments these people will make, they will do it. So yeah, anyway, this is what's called ad hominem. You know, a lot of people in the comment sections, I fully expect to give me an ad hominem attack. It's happened on every one of my other videos, so I fully expect people to misrepresent me, trying to discredit me so that my arguments don't get listened to. So anyway, that's about all for today.